So first of all, I would like to thank everyone who has supported my work by purchasing my ebook, and I would also greatly appreciate if you took the time to write a review on Amazon after you read it, because that will help spread the word and make it rank higher in the system. But this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the true cause of victim mentality, and also why I keep bringing up Trump in many of my videos, because some people don't like it seems, and I want to explain why I do that and what it is about, and there is a good reason for it. It's not about politics or anything like that. But let's start with the true cause of victim mentality first. And as I explain in great detail in my ebook and in other videos, the root cause of victim mentality is early childhood trauma. And at the bare minimum, everyone gets a rejection trauma installed as a newborn baby, because the ultra-sensitive baby interprets anything less than unconditional love as rejection. And this is also why everyone has such a hard time for forgiving their parents, because they couldn't love them unconditionally, even as a baby. Not because they didn't want to, or because they, wanted to do something bad, or, anything like that, but simply because they themselves have their own rejection trauma from their parents, and it all goes from generation to generation. And even if they are loving and nice on the surface, the baby still picks up that negativity from the unconscious mind of the parents, and that's enough, because the baby is so sensitive. That's enough to install, at the very least, a rejection trauma at the deepest level of the personality structure that develops. So this is something you cannot escape on this planet, and at least not for now. Maybe later, maybe at some point we will increase the level enough to escape that. We probably will at some point when the mass consciousness is high enough, but not for now. So some people have asked what are other childhood traumas that you can get like that, and obviously there are many, many different ones, and I'm going to mention a few here. For example, until recent times, it was pretty common practice for doctors to slap the newborn baby on the behind to stimulate breathing right after the baby is born. But this, as far as I know, they have stopped with this, at least in most modern hospitals in the Western world or whatever. They don't do this anymore because they realize it's probably not a good idea to introduce violence as the first meeting with the world. But that's what they have been doing for many, many long time, and it was normal, common. So obviously that's not a good idea, in my view at least, to actually the first meeting with the world is to be slapped like that. It's pretty harsh, and it's obviously going to imprint a pretty strong trauma on the baby. And, just because the baby can't remember it consciously, that doesn't mean it doesn't affect it greatly for life, which I think it does. And the same for, there are a lot of mothers who suffer from postpartum depression. A pretty big percentage actually who suffer from this, if you look into it. It's quite common, not uncommon, and that also is one thing. You're being nursed by a mother with postpartum depression, which means she's very low level at that time. She might get better after a while, but still the damage is done because the baby is being nursed by somebody who's extremely depressed and low level on the scale. That's not going to be a good thing for the baby. Imprinting of the early development of the personality, obviously, is going to be a trauma. And these are just a few examples of traumas that are not even malicious in intent. These are just, regular stuff that can happen or used to happen. But, there are tons of things that can happen that are also malicious in intent from bad parents and whatnot. So these are just a few examples, but there are plenty of different ones. I can't go into everything. You can just imagine and see and look into it yourself. There are plenty of, true crime videos you can check of people who have been suffering all sorts of traumas, and they end up as criminals in different ways, right? So that's just the nature of the Earth game, and the harshness of this Earth school, and the roughness of it, how it's been, although that is now changing gradually into something else as we go through this ascension. And according to Bashar, it's actually rare across the universe to have a civilization where everybody is split off from the oneness of the natural self like we are in this planet, on this planet. It's one of the few places you can actually incarnate and believe you are nothing but a mortal body. So that's what makes Earth so unique and this school so unique, that you can actually come here and believe and forget everything and believe that you're just a body who's going to die. When the body dies, you're going to die forever. That's what many people believe, right? So it's a unique place to incarnate in that sense, and it gives a unique experience that probably looks more attractive from the soul level side, after you're dead or on that side, than it does when you're actually in the body, in many cases at least. It probably looks a lot more fun, like a virtual reality kind of game that's really realistic, right? But when you actually get into it, it's not so fun anymore, but it probably looks kind of attractive and fun from the other side. And I guess your perspective changes completely when you see it from that side, which you know that it's just a temporary thing. But that temporary thing, a whole lifetime is pretty long if you're being tortured in all sorts of ways and go through all sorts of shit like many people do on this planet. So it's not, I don't know. I'm hopefully not coming back. Hopefully, I will see, but I don't plan to at this time to come back to this planet ever again. But we'll see. So the early childhood trauma, it generates these woundings at the deepest levels, and that sort of forces the individual to develop a cage or a protective measure, like a cage around those core woundings to protect against those deep-seated core woundings to be touched from by the world and by other people and whatnot. So you start, as you grow up, you develop layers upon layer of this cage, which becomes like an onion around the core woundings, and this protective measure actually turns into the prison that most people don't realize they're in. And that's the whole game. That's the whole Earth game. Can you escape this prison, or how much of the prison complex can you dismantle, or can you even understand that you are in a prison? Because most people at this time don't. So that's the big challenge, right? That's the whole game. Because most people mistake this multi-layered cage for who they are, for their personality and their identity. Because they know nothing else, they believe that this is just who they are, this is their identity. But it's not really the true identity, it's not the natural self, it's an artificial construct, it's an artificial created trauma-based personality, which is not really who you are. It's a prison complex you're trapped inside because you can't escape being triggered by these woundings that you have when things touch you. Or you can escape it if you actually take responsibility, but you're still trapped in it. As long as you don't take responsibility and try to dismantle it, you're trapped in this pain body, with all sorts of triggers, and most people don't even understand they can dismantle those triggers. So they walk around being triggered all the time and react and blame the world and blame other people and whatnot. And having this cage, this personality cage, is what I call a single personality disorder. Because it's not natural, it's not actually healthy, it's not obviously, if you look at the civilization and the history of this planet, it's not a healthy state. It creates all sorts of trouble and violence, and it generates so much problems, all because of this. And it goes from one generation to the next. It accumulates because if nobody does the inner work, the newborn baby takes on the trauma from the parents, and it goes and it accumulates across generations until we reach a point where we either evolve completely as to a new level or we self-destruct. And this has happened many times on this planet. We have self-destructed as a whole civilization before, but this time we are supposedly not going to do that. We are supposed to actually evolve to a completely different level with the help of a lot of lightworkers who came in to volunteer to help this ascension thing. So that's the single personality disorder, because severe and repeated early childhood trauma, which you get from malicious intent of the parents who are doing abusive stuff and whatnot, and also MK Ultra programming from the government and deep state, this creates multiple trauma-based alter egos instead of just the one you get by default, and this is what leads to multiple personality disorder. So this whole setup with the core trauma, core wounding, and the cage built around it is what actually causes the sense of being a victim in everybody to various degrees. And the degrees obviously vary with your level of consciousness and the severity of your childhood trauma and everything. So it's simple as that. Having this in a prison cage of pain body with core woundings and a cage built around it is why people feel like a victim, because they don't know how to escape it. They feel trapped on a certain level, even if it's unconsciously. Everybody feel kind of trapped and they don't know how to escape it, and everybody is suffering either unconsciously or in the background. You have this existential suffering because the cage is actually filled with resistances to the natural self or the flow of your consciousness in natural self, and this is what generates negativity and suffering. And it's always there in the background, or even if you don't consciously think about it all the time, it's always there, right? You have this existential suffering going on, and if something happens, it can deeply trigger you and rattle your cage, so to speak, and really make a big problem for you because you have this pain body. That this is the reality of it. That everybody have this. Most people think they're pretty healthy and okay and sane, but in reality is nobody is. Everybody has this. And if everybody would just admit this, and we would all just, it could become common knowledge, and we could all, it would be a different world if everybody just admitted to this, and we started to help and heal each other and help, and heal each other inside and be open about it. It would make a big difference, I think. But so far, it's not really common knowledge, and not even in the truth movement. Most people are not really aware of this. They're mostly blaming the conspiracy stuff and the deep state for the problems, which is half true, but they don't see that they're also contributing to the setup with their own negativity they have repressed and their own shadow, which adds up to the collective negative shadow, which again is the manifestation of the deep state. So it's all there to balance out the deep state, and the collective shadow is there to balance out the karmic lessons. Because the more people take responsibility and dismantle their own shadow, and do this on a global scale, the less karma we have and the less negativity we will have in the world, and the less need there will be for a deep state to give us those lessons. So it's all a balancing system, but it's been out of balance so deeply that it's become very difficult to return to balance, which is why all the lightworkers came to volunteer to help get this system back in balance, so we can actually have a more healthy development going forward. And that's the whole point, right? But the point is here that's the inner cage, the inner prison is what causes you to feel like you are a victim. Either some people feel like they're a victim consciously and they take on that role consciously, so to speak, or they live out the victim mentality role. And many people repress it, and they just sort of compensate in many different ways. Their whole life might be a compensation for how they feel inside of being a victim and powerless and these things. I talk about this in my book into great detail. And that's just the how it's been and how it still is in many ways on this planet. And it's the root cause of the whole problem and all the suffering, negativity in the world, everything. And, but it makes a big difference when you intellectually understand that you can actually dismantle the cage inside. Just knowing this helps, and that's what I'm teaching here, and also how to do it. So it's one thing to know it intellectually, it's another thing to actually have a first-hand experience with how it works and that it actually works. That gives you proof of concepts. When you have done it one time, it makes a big difference in your life, because you know that now you can just continue doing that, and it becomes like an obsession, because it feels so good letting go of negativity that you feel so relieved that you just want to continue and continue. And that's the whole idea. That's what you should do. If you want to go up the scale of consciousness as quickly as possible, that's the way to do it. So having first-hand experience, which you can easily get by doing what I talk about in the rest of this video, will help a lot. It will change the whole way you see the life and the world. If you do it and you succeed with it only once, which you can easily do. And this is also why I bring up Trump many times in my videos, because I know he's a universal trigger for many people. So it's a really effective tool that I can use to bring up that negativity in people and the triggers in them and the low-hanging fruit, as I call it. Because if you're above a certain level on the scale, then you're not easily triggered anymore. Let's say above 330 on the scale, that's what you need to be part of the ascending earth. So my mission on this channel and here in teaching these things is actually aimed more at people below the 330s, people in the 200s who have the potential to get into the 300s. I want to help those people mostly, because that's more important, okay? The most important is to get people in the 200s and below up into the 300s, because then they can be part of the golden age, and also the golden age can come much more quickly. The more people we can get on board like that, and the golden age will happen more smoothly. The less people who resist the changes. So that's my whole main mission and effort with this channel. That's why I have to bring up Trump, because that will reveal in people where you are. If you are severely triggered by Trump, you can't handle talking about it, you can't handle me talking about him, you blame him for how you feel inside. I'm sorry, but you are below 330. You are not part of the ascension in the golden age, but you can be. Because if you're triggered, you can easily heal it. And that's why I teach at the same time as I talk about Trump and make you triggered by it. I teach you how to deal with it, which I'm going to do in this video once again. I do it from different angles, I do it from different ways, and you can obviously buy my ebook to get everything in detail. You can sit down and read it a few times and actually get to know it deeply like that, because it's one thing to listen to a video and then you forget about it or whatever. If you actually pay a little bit of money, like $10 for a book, it feels more like an investment, like you have to get your money's worth for it, instead of getting something for free like these videos. You get your money's worth, you have to do the practice. So that's why I charge $10 for it, which actually, the value I give in that book is worth at least $1,000, because I even tell people how to cure any disease with documented proof from documentary. So that's just a bonus part of the book. So I give tremendous value in that book, and also explain everything in detail. So I recommend you get that book instead of asking me all sorts of questions in the comment field. I appreciate questions, but I'd rather just you buy the book first and then ask questions if you don't understand something, because that's where I explain everything super clearly, and you can actually take the time to read it and understand it on your own time. But anyway, the point is that I bring up Trump in many of my videos because I know he triggers people, and if you're above a certain level, you're not triggered by Trump anymore, or at least not very much. So by doing this, I'm helping people who are triggered by Trump to heal what he brings up in them, because I help them realize that, hey, it's not his fault that you feel bad, okay? The negativity is already in you. It's already in you from before. He's just bringing it up so you can actually take responsibility for it and heal it. And that's the whole point, okay? If you can't see that, you have no chance to be part of the ascension, okay? That's a kindergarten lesson. You have to be able to understand that nothing that happens in the mirror of reality has anything to do with how you feel inside. How you feel inside is based on your pain body cage that has been created in you from the childhood traumas. And your job is to dismantle this cage as best you can. And when you do that, you increase your level of consciousness, and you see Trump and everything in different ways. And you're not triggered by it anymore. You're not triggered by many other things. You lose all the triggers. You don't trigger anymore. It's that simple. In the 500s, you have no triggers almost. So you can be at peace. That's why it's called peace and clarity, because you're not easily triggered. I'm not saying you cannot be triggered at those levels. Obviously you can. If you still have some traumas left, you can still be triggered. But you have much less of it. It's not so condensed and packed in your system. So that's the point. I mean, you have to understand that basic lesson, that it's not about anything in the mirror of reality. It's about what it brings up in you, and then you can heal it. So that being said, it's simple. I mean, if you don't like the content I offer on this channel, just go watch something else, But if you like what I offer, but you don't like me talking about Trump, then you can simply ignore the parts you don't like and benefit from what you do like. You can't dictate what I'm going to talk about, because this is my channel. So you can either leave, or you can take what you want from it, and you can use what you feel is good. But if you can't handle the fact that I'm talking about Trump, that means you have a problem, okay? It's not my problem. You have a problem, because nothing in the world should trigger you. That means you have a trigger you have to take care of and dismantle, okay? It's not my problem. I don't have a trigger. I don't have a problem with Trump or anything. I took care of most of my triggers. I spent my whole life from my early 20s to now mid 40s to heal. Okay, I've done everything I can to heal myself. So that's why I can make these videos, because I know what I'm talking about. So I've done my homework. I've done my inner work as best as I can. So it's not really my problem if you can't handle it. You can just leave, or you can take what you want from what you benefit from this channel, or you can actually start to listen to what I'm saying and actually use the Trump triggers to dismantle yourself and dismantle the inner pain body as best you can by the techniques I give you. I mean, this is very simple and basic stuff, right? The amount of triggers you have will decrease up the scale. As the higher you go, the less trigger you have. And as I said, a person in the 500s is really hard to trigger. A person below 200, for example, is chronically triggered. Most people below 200 are so packed with triggers and pain and negativity that, and pretty much anything that happens in their daily life triggers them all the time. They are like chronically angry. Many of these people, they walk around chronically angry. You have probably met some such people yourself, who are always angry for whatever happens. They're triggered all the time because they're in around 150. That's chronic anger. 160 below 200 anyway. You're packed with negativity and triggers, so you walk around chronically triggered by anything. And you hate everybody, and that's just how it is. That's the level. That's what that level is. Those levels below 200 are, right? A person in the 200s is also pretty easy to trigger, but usually it requires more of a provocation, like somebody saying something, or trash talking, or saying the wrong words, or whatever. But they're still quite easy to trigger. And in the 300s and the higher 300s, you can still be triggered, but it takes much more up there. And in the 400s, you are pretty hard to trigger as well. In the 500s, you have very few triggers left. It's all about your triggers. It's not about what happens in the world, or who is president, or whatever. That doesn't matter. I mean, there's a reason why somebody in the 500s can be at peace no matter what happens, almost, while somebody below 200 cannot. It's not because of the world. The world is the same for those two people, more or less, like what's going on, right? It's just how they see it, and the lack of triggers in one of them and the amount of triggers in the other, that makes the difference, okay? This is what you have to understand if you want to work on yourself and actually get up the scale. I mean, think about it. Very few people had a problem with Trump before the media ran their 24/7 propaganda storm against him. And this is how the deep state, which is a 3D manifestation of the collective shadow, programs the mass consciousness with their propaganda machinery, right? They repeat all these lies and hoaxes all the time, and negative views of stuff. And that's how they program the mass consciousness and the collective shadow to see things a certain way. And the lower you are on the scale, the more susceptible you are to this programming. Because the lower you are on the scale, the deeper you are in the clutches of the collective shadow, which is working through the mind that you have yet to establish any kind of distance from. So this is why so many people don't even understand why they hate Trump. It's just suddenly it just happened after he became president or whatever the first time, and the media ran this constant hate against him, and suddenly you had all these people in a lower level of consciousness who suddenly started to hate him with a passion, and have been doing so and resisting reality for so many years now. It's like, it's not one guy's fault. He did nothing. He didn't even start a single war. He did nothing that you can even blame him for that much. And still, people hate him so much, like he's the worst person ever. It makes no sense if you look at it rationally with a little bit of a distance to it. Think about it. Why did it suddenly happen after the media started their campaign? Because they programmed the mass consciousness that way. And the lower you are in the scale of consciousness, the more susceptible you are to that programming. It's that simple. And you can use formal meditation to establish a distance to your own thoughts and mind stuff. And this is the start of breaking loose from the whole collective negative ego and actually start to take responsibility for yourself and increase your level of consciousness, you have to have a distance to your own thoughts and mind. You can't just accept whatever comes into your mind and believe that you perceive reality, because you're perceiving projections and not really perceiving it clearly. So the higher you go up the scale of consciousness, the more of a distance you have to your own mind stuff and your own thoughts, and the more they sort of fade away. All the voices in your head and all that negativity sort of fades away and becomes less and less dense the higher you go on the scale. In the 500s you have a complete peace most of the time. You don't have much thought activity. It's all very quiet and peaceful. And that's a big difference from the lower levels. So, that's what you're aiming for. You want a quiet and calm and peaceful and sattvic mind that's transparent as possible. Okay? Not full of triggers. So here is the key takeaway of this. The idea is to not get caught up in the story level that goes on in your head about why you don't like Trump or his politics or whatever it is. Because that's on the surface, that's in your head. That's just a narrative in your head, okay? Because the collective shadow is feeding your mind, and it will also come up with endless reasons why you're stuck. And it's going to be an endless loop going nowhere if you keep engaging with this. It's just a thought loop in your head. Because it's not really the root cause, okay? The root cause is the negative emotions and pain you have underneath that actually is attracting those perspectives and narratives in your head. And that's what you have to heal if you want to change how you view things and increase your level of consciousness. The story level is just endless distraction. You can go on and find so many reasons why you hate Trump, and it goes on and on and on. It's going to continue, and you're going to be stuck forever in that loop. If you want to do that, it's up to you. But if you want to grow in consciousness, you have to disengage from the whole story level of it, get deeper into it, and that's how you can actually heal it, and you will see a complete different reality if you do this. So if you want to grow in consciousness and get up the scale, it's easy. When Trump triggers you, or you put up on a video with Trump or whatever you need to do, the video you hate most, and put it on a loop and meditate on it, and then you sit down and you allow all those negative emotions and pain and the chaos to come up inside you. You sit with closed eyes and it comes up inside of you, and you just allow it to come up fully with no resistance to it, no judgment of it. Just observe it neutrally. And you do this until it leaves, because it will leave. It's just a matter of how long can you sit with it until it leaves. And you might have to do it in sessions. You can do it a little bit one day and next day, but you might have to do it for weeks and months. But once you're finished, you will have so much more clarity, and you will feel so relieved each time you do this, and you see that it works. And eventually your whole relationship to Trump and how you see him will change. Not because you can still disagree with his politics or whatever it is, but you will not be so triggered by it. That's the point. You can still have different ideas. That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to agree with anything in regards of politics. That's not the point. The point is to avoid go into resistance and suffering, and and be triggered because something happened in the world, in the mirror of reality. You're using that mirror to get those things up in you, and then you heal them. And then that's easy because it's low-hanging fruit, because Trump so easily triggers people, so many people below a certain level, that you can easily get rid of those things, because you can just sit and meditate on his videos or whatever you need until it's all gone, and then it will leave you forever. And you rinse and repeat until there is nothing left, and then you find yourself in the 300s or something, and you will have a different life and be much more happy in your life and much more content, and not go around being triggered by everything all the time. So it's up to you. You can choose to blame him for how you feel inside, and you can go into resistance, and it's all because of him, and that's why you feel bad. It's nothing else. No, it's not really. The truth is, you have a pain body inside. You have a cage and a pain body inside that you have to dismantle if you want to feel better. He is just bringing it up in you, and that's what makes you suffer. It's your own pain body. It's not him or anything, because then everybody would suffer. It would be universal. But people in the 500s or in the higher 300s of Ava, they don't suffer that much from it. They don't trigger that much from it. So obviously it's not universal. It's not like he is causing people to suffer. It's only because he's triggering your pain body and your shadow side coming up in you that you have to take responsibility for. It's very simple to do that. I told you just now how to do it. You sit down and you face it and you allow it to come up. That's simple. And this will change your whole level of consciousness and outlook on life. And, it's actually free therapy. It's up to you. You can choose to continue to blame him, or you can do these simple exercises and you can get rid of it for good and be part of the ascension process. So it's up to you.